She is very calculating and very ruthless and very self-promoting, but she's taken on more in the end than she can chew.
A shocking headline on the front page of the Mail on Sunday: dismay for the King as Harry says he may not bring Meghan and the kids back to the UK.
It looks like Harry and Meghan have been forced into a decision nobody publicly anticipated. After months of speculation about Meghan finally making her grand return to British soil, the visit has reportedly been cancelled, or at minimum, scaled back to Harry alone. This was clearly not how either of them wanted things to go. This was supposed to be Meghan's big comeback moment. Instead, something happened behind the scenes that changed the entire calculation, and Tom Bower has reportedly uncovered the core reason why. Here is what is actually confirmed before we get into the analysis. The Invictus Games are locked in for Birmingham in 2027, with rehearsal and countdown events already scheduled for July 2026. As the founder of the Games, Harry has no meaningful option but to be present.
I think that's what the Invictus Games, which is this very splendid competition for wounded servicemen, is going to start in Birmingham next year, but there's a rehearsal later in the summer. And Harry is determined to come, and if he could, he'd bring Meghan and somehow work his way back in so that they have status.
That part of the trip was never in doubt. What was in doubt, in what has now apparently been resolved in the direction nobody in the Sussex camp wanted, is whether Meghan and the young ones would be coming with him. They were reportedly planning to join him. The trip was going to serve multiple purposes simultaneously: the Invictus Countdown, a visit to Princess Diana's grave timed with appropriate press coverage, and potentially the long-discussed meetings with King Charles and other family members. On paper, it looked thoughtful and symbolic. In practice, people were not buying the spontaneity of it. The timing was too convenient, the coverage too pre-shaped, the narrative too polished to feel unmanaged. Tom Bower's explanation for what changed comes down to one word: security.
Prince Harry and Meghan could be staying at Althorp House, Princess Diana's ancestral estate in West Northamptonshire. I feel very British. They're going to be staying in West Northamptonshire, having high tea and crumpets and scones. The estate's website notes that it will be closed to visitors next month, prompting speculation that Harry and his family could visit or even stay there during the family trip. Now, this is where Princess Diana is buried, and with the family's visit falling shortly after her birthday, this could make sense. Her birthday is on July 1st.
However, after every consideration had been made, Harry has decided not.
Bower's account is that Harry's excitement about returning to Britain was so significant that it caused him to temporarily set aside the single issue that has defined and constrained every attempt at a UK visit since 2020: security. Specifically, the question of whether Harry and his family would receive taxpayer-funded protection equivalent to that provided to working members of the royal family. The answer, once again, was no. Harry submitted a request to RAVEC, the Royal and VYP Executive Committee, the body that makes protection decisions for public figures in the UK, and the committee indicated it needed time to assess the situation. Harry and his team reportedly took that as a signal that a positive answer was coming and began making genuine preparations for the family to travel together.
Absolutely. I mean, the cost of living for them is enormous. I mean, the security alone, which they feel they need, must cost between $1.5 and $2 million a year.
Then, shortly before the planned departure date, the request was formally denied. Again, this is not a new situation. Harry lost his court appeal against the 2020 removal of his automatic security protection. The legal position is clear. He is no longer a working member of the royal family and is not entitled to the same level of state protection. If he wants that level of coverage for himself and his family, he can arrange and fund it privately. He has consistently refused to accept that arrangement, arguing that private security is insufficient given the specific threats he says have been directed at him and his family since stepping back from royal duties. The consequence of the security denial is by now entirely predictable. Harry has stated repeatedly and publicly that he will not bring Meghan and the young ones to the UK without the protection he considers adequate. He made that commitment publicly multiple times, and the Sussex communications machine amplified it. So when the protection is denied, he is left with two options: bring the family anyway and visibly contradict every public statement he has made on this subject for years, or leave them in California and come alone. He has chosen the latter, and the choice itself tells you something, because it means the visit matters enough to him him that he is willing to make it solo rather than not make it at all. The security question is the official reason. But Tom Bauer's analysis, and that of several other commentators who have studied this situation closely, is that the security denial is functioning as useful cover for a set of additional reasons Meghan has for not wanting to return to Britain right now. Start with the media. Meghan has been ranked among the most unpopular public figures in Britain in multiple opinion polls conducted across the last several years.
That's why I trust the process. Ravik, who did deny Harry this additional security that he's requested, it's their job to assess credible threats using intelligence the public doesn't have access to. And if they concluded Harry doesn't require the level of taxpayer-funded security he's demanding, I have to assume that decision was based on the best available evidence. But with Harry previously stating that his wife and children are not safe in Britain, he's backed himself into a really awkward corner here. But you're absolutely right. It would be catastrophic if anything happened to Harry and Meghan while they were visiting the UK, and that, now I'm reconsidering bringing Meghan and the children, which we all know is just Harry and Meghan trying to manipulate the media and bully King Charles into a corner.
British media coverage of her has ranged from skeptical to openly hostile for the better part of a decade. Returning to British soil means walking back into that coverage, providing a fresh news cycle that she has no ability to fully control, and doing so at a moment when her commercial brand is already under pressure. The as ever traffic numbers are declining. Netflix has exited as the equity partner behind the brand.
On the other hand, William, under no circumstances, in my opinion, would allow Harry to come back, and Meghan would be certainly stopped midway across the Atlantic. And people on the whole are bored to death with her and her jam and her silly speeches and ridiculous shots on Instagram, and suddenly becomes an irritating irrelevance. And that is really, I think, in her darkest moments, her greatest fear. What happens when the show stops completely because the world is not interested?
The lifestyle series finished the year ranked around number 383 on the platform's own charts. A British media cycle right now is the last thing she needs. Then there is the institutional reception. Multiple senior royal staff members are reportedly still not on good terms with Meghan. The bullying allegations that were filed internally before the press ever got hold of them have never been formally resolved or publicly addressed in a way that has settled the question. The trust between Meghan and the institution has not been repaired, and there is no indication it is being actively repaired.
Insiders are describing her, as you know, quote, a dictator in high heels who terrifies staff and accusations of her belittling people. They constantly demand respect and privacy, but again, treat their own employees with zero respect and create a revolving door of allegedly terrified staff. So,
walking back into an environment where the relationships remain damaged, where the welcome would not be warm, and where every interaction might become material for the next news cycle is a reasonable thing to want to avoid regardless of the security question. There is also the accommodation problem, which is more revealing than it initially appears. Since the eviction from Frogmore Cottage in 2023, Harry and Meghan have no official royal residence in Britain.
Well, there's a whole story about her attitude to people she works with, especially in a photo shoot about Reitman's, a sort of Marks and Spencer's chain store in Canada, where the experience for all the 80 crew was just horrendous. And there was two agents who told horrible stories about her bullying and her oppression. That was really quite a revelation. Her father...
Charles reportedly offered accommodation during a 2024 visit, and Harry declined on the grounds that the available properties were too visible, too likely to attract the media attention he was trying to avoid. Sources close to the situation have suggested Meghan's expectations for accommodation are considerably more specific: a proper royal residence with the appropriate level of grandeur and the appropriate symbolic weight. Not a discreet property suitable for a quiet private visit, but the kind of setting that would allow them to be photographed as members of the royal family rather than visitors operating under conditions. That expectation, if accurate, explains a great deal about the impasse. What Charles can offer is a place to stay.
And as for the accommodation in a royal palace, well, we've got so many empty royal palaces at the moment. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. The issue will only be if they allow themselves to be filmed and photographed as if they were members of the royal family. I think that is where the line's going to have to be drawn.
What Meghan apparently wants is a place to be seen staying. Those are not the same offer. And the people around William have been explicit on the record that the future king has no intention of allowing the Sussex brand to use a royal palace as a promotional backdrop. The visit, if it happens, will not be accompanied by the kind of imagery that could restore the Sussex brand's association with royal prestige. Bowers' read on the bigger picture is consistent with what he has been saying across his last 2 books. Harry and Meghan are running out of options, and both of them know it. To the Invictus veterans, the roots he wants his young ones to have access to before it becomes too late to establish them. These are genuine motivations that are not simply reducible to a brand strategy, even if the brand strategy benefits from the same actions. Meghan's calculus is different. She is reportedly willing to return to Britain, but only if the conditions make it commercially and reputationally worthwhile.
Their problem is that they've got no future. I mean, as ever, all her products, of course, is a complete disaster. She's got no Netflix series. She hasn't got any project at all. And they are literally wallowing in a maze where to go. And so predictably. And so that is the problem. And for them to come back in the midst of the current royal crisis here.
Security resolved, accommodation appropriate to her expectations, media manageable, a platform that serves the brand's rehabilitation rather than exposing it to another round of damaging coverage. Without those conditions, the risk of returning outweighs the potential benefit. She stays in Montecito. Harry goes alone. The practical consequence of this arrangement is something commentators have been dancing around for months and are now naming more directly. Harry and Meghan's priorities are visibly diverging. Harry's most important remaining connection to a public identity with genuine meaning, the Invictus Games, the veterans it serves, the work that even his sharpest critics find difficult to diminish, requires him to be in Britain.
She never intended to stay in Britain, but just took the title. And in the end, what I really hold against her, she betrayed all those people who tried very hard, from the best of intentions, from the Queen downwards, to make her feel welcome and believe that she would integrate herself into the royal family, into Britain.
Meghan's commercial recovery requires her to be building her brand in California without the distraction of British media hostility. Those two things can coexist in the short term. Over time, they pull in different directions, and the distance between those directions has been growing steadily. Bowers' prediction is blunt. The current situation is not the final chapter. Every commercial venture the couple has attempted has underperformed relative to its original pitch. The Netflix relationship has contracted twice. Spotify ended, as Ever lost its equity partner. The financial position, while not destitute, is under pressure in ways that were not visible when the original exit was made. And when the options run out entirely, Bowers' argument is that Britain becomes not a choice, but a necessity. Not because Harry wants to come back on the institution's terms, but because there is nowhere else left that offers the combination of standing, security, and platform that the UK provides. Whether that day comes and when, and whether Meghan comes with Harry when it does, those are the questions this story is actually about.
As the rest. So I think that they're running out of money. I mean, I've conservatively put their annual expenditure at 3 million, but for that they'd have to earn 4 or 5 million. And it's they're running out of money because they run out of people to interest to buy their story, and that's why I think in the end they'll be desperate to come back to Britain to revalidate and reconcile with the royal family, which in the end will be the only way they might be able to save themselves. But I think that's a remote possibility.
The cancelled trip is not the end of anything. It is a preview of the tension that has been building for years and is now visible enough that even the people most invested in maintaining the united front cannot entirely hide it. One last detail worth sitting with, because it illuminates the whole situation more clearly than almost anything else. Harry reportedly wants his young ones to know their British roots. He wants Archie and Lilibet to understand who Princess Diana was, to visit her grave, to meet the Spencer family, to form a relationship with a grandfather they have seen only in brief and tightly controlled circumstances. That desire, the fatherly instinct to give them access to their history before the people who carry that history are gone, is not a PR strategy. It is the kind of thing that is simply true regardless of what else is also true simultaneously. And yet the visit that was supposed to serve that purpose is now a solo trip at best, with the young ones remaining in California, with Meghan remaining in California, with the question of whether Archie and Lilibet will ever properly know their grandfather's country left unanswered for another year. The security question is the official explanation. The commercial calculation is the real one running underneath it. And somewhere in the gap between those two things is a set of young ones who are paying the price for a conflict they did not choose and cannot resolve. That is the part of this story that gets lost in the brand analysis and the commercial metrics and the polling numbers. The human consequence of all of it lands most heavily on the people with the least power to change it. Harry wants to fix that. Whether Meghan's conditions for returning will ever align with what Britain is actually willing to offer is the question that has now gone unanswered for 4 years and counting. Drop your verdict in the comments. Will Harry and Meghan eventually be forced back to Britain on terms they did not choose, or will they find a way to make the California chapter work on its own? I read every single one. Hit that like button and subscribe. There is considerably more coming this week. The clock on that question keeps running regardless of what either of them decides. Bauer has been right about too many of the big turns in this story to dismiss his prediction about the final one.